guest call. This is one of our mini wellness workshops, and this is going to be a really, really good one. So if you know of anyone that is curious about fat loss, they want to ditch all of those diet lies, you're going to want to text them really quick and tell them to pop on, because we have the expert, Dr. Ryan Lowry here, who is going to be answering. You guys, I have so many questions and I am so excited to get his expertise on it. So you are going to want to make sure that your friends, your family, the people that you care about are on this call, because it's going to be really, really good. So the title is going to be Ditch the Diet Lies, the Real Science Behind Losing Fat with Dr. Ryan Lowry. How many of you have ever done a diet that you didn't love? If you've done a diet that you didn't love, say me in the chat. If you're like, oh, this is going to be it. It's going to be this diet. This diet is going to get me looking my best. I've done it too. So I've done one with drops, and I could only have 500 calories a day. Let me tell you what happened. I lost a lot of weight, and I lost a lot of unhealthy weight. I lost my muscle. I was like skinny, but it wasn't maintainable. I can't do these drops and have 500 calories a day. So what happened is when I stopped, I gained it all back. And when I gained it all back, that emotional roller coaster of looking in the mirror and saying, I did it. And then months later, seeing yourself and being like, I'm back to what I was before. It's so frustrating. So the yo-yo diets are not maintainable. We have the expert on here, and I'm really excited to learn from him. So if I haven't got to meet you yet, my name is Sarah Ramos. I am coming to you from Boise, Idaho. I have been drinking ketones for 9 years now. It will be 9 years. July of 2016 is when this beautiful community found me at the exact time that I needed them to find me. And ketones forever changed my life. The first thing I noticed was the mood. My husband was like, you are so happy. What is it that you are taking? And it was these ketones. So we're going to be learning about these ketones today, and we're going to be talking specifically about fat loss. My first week drinking these ketones, I did notice fat loss. And I was so excited because it was inches. And it felt so good. And then with time, we are going to talk about time, because just like my story at the beginning, we don't want this to be completely unhealthy, where we're losing so much weight so fast that we're also losing our muscle. So here's an example of a before and after picture of me. I did not even know that I looked like that before. It took somebody else's photo to come up on a time hop. And I was like, that is what I looked like before? That is crazy. And this right here is about 8 years later in my 40s. And so ketones work. I am so excited to have Dr. Ryan Lowry on. I see that he has popped on already. So we are going to get started right away. So Dr. Ryan, he is the formulator of our product. I am so happy that I get to drink this to start my day. Each and every day, it has completely shifted my life and so many lives of the people that are on here. He is the formulator of this bioidentical ketone. He is also the co-author of this book right here, the Ketogenic Bible. If you have not got your hands on a copy of this, you have got to thumb through it. It is so amazing. It'll talk about the science with ketosis. It talks about different nutrition and meal planning. It also talks about how to support people with different things going on in their life, like diabetes or epilepsy. And so it's so amazing, and it's hard for me to keep my copies because people are always borrowing them. So I'm excited to stop talking and to turn it over to Dr. Ryan Lowry. So there's so many guests on here that weren't on here last week. So Dr. Ryan, if you would just introduce yourself, say a little bit of your background and what got you interested in exogenous ketones.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you, Sarah. Appreciate it, and excited to be here with you all. I see a lot of familiar faces and many, many, many new faces, so that's fantastic. I will keep it brief, so that way we can get into the things that you're probably most excited about, which is like, what's the best diet? How do I lose fat? All of this fun stuff. But a little bit about my background. I grew up playing sports my entire life. Became fascinated with how to optimize like body composition and performance. So I went to University of Tampa, got my undergraduate and master's in exercise and nutrition science, and then went on to get a PhD in health and human performance, and did my entire dissertation on exogenous ketones. And my dissertation was actually on exogenous ketones and Crohn's. That's what I did my dissertation on. So been studying ketones for going on 12 years now, which is crazy to think about. And so have been really, really dove deep into this field. We now have a facility in Tampa called the Applied Science and Performance Institute, where we do clinical research all day long on a variety of different things. Best weight loss protocols, all different kinds of supplements and interventions. But a lot of our research focus is on ketones, ketosis, and how it applies to various different therapeutic areas.
I love it. Okay, so you said ketones, ketosis. So to get started, just because we do have so many guests on here, will you explain what are ketones and why would someone want to be in a state of ketosis?
Yeah, so ketones, the simplest definition of what ketones are they are a metabolic fuel, right? That is what ketones are. Now, there's multiple ways that you can get ketones. You can get ketones from fasting, long periods of time. You can get ketones from exercising really, really, really hard. So your body produces a little bit of ketones when you exercise like really, really, really hard for a long period of time. You can go on a ketogenic diet and start to produce ketones. Or, thankfully, about 10 years ago, we kind of uncovered that you don't necessarily need to do any of those things, and you could just drink them. You could literally just consume them in what we call an exogenous ketone, which basically means just made outside of the body. We drink it, and within 10 to 15 minutes, ketones are inside of our blood and start to get absorbed by our brain, our heart, and our muscle tissues. So that's a little overview of what ketones are.
That's amazing. So let's say someone is drinking the ketones and they're utilizing ketones. What happens to the carbs that are in your body?
If someone starts drinking ketones, basically what we see is your blood glucose levels tend to come down. So people always ask, well, do I need to be on a ketogenic diet? Do I need to be consuming a certain diet in order to get the benefit of ketones? And the answer is no. Ketones are diet agnostic, meaning you do not need to be on any type of diet to get the benefit of ketones. And so that's very, very, very important. Even if you consume carbohydrates, it actually tends to make your blood glucose from those carbohydrates go down. And there's a lot of new research on that where and I'll give you an example. If you consume a bowl of rice, I'll just use this as like an example. You consume a bowl of rice, your blood glucose might go up, kind of like a roller coaster, and come down. If you consume exogenous ketones before consuming that same cup of rice, your blood glucose won't go as high, right? Your blood glucose will actually be lower than if you did not have the exogenous ketones.
That's such a good answer. I feel like I learn something every single time, even though I've been doing this for 9 years. Okay, the next one. So, why is fat loss more important than weight loss when it comes to like the number on the scale? Why is losing fat more important than that number on the scale?
Super important. So when I talk about body composition, or when we mention body composition, and that's really what we're targeting, right? We're targeting fat loss. We're targeting improvements in body composition. I think a lot of times people look for weight loss, and I'll explain why you shouldn't be looking for weight loss, right? That number on the scale can often be deceiving, right? And I'll use an example that probably everyone's familiar with. It's all over the media these days, but like you've heard of these GLP-1 medications, right? So very popular, right? Ozempic and some of these things are very, very, very popular. If you look at the data, behind them. And it's kind of skewed everyone's perception of what proper weight loss should look like, right? When they take these medications, they tend to lose a lot of weight very quickly, right? And so people are like, this is fantastic. Oh my gosh, the number on the scale is going down. Unfortunately, what we see in the research is over time, when you look at like 3 to 6 months out, about 50% of that is lean tissue, meaning you might be losing, say you lose 30 pounds. Of that 30 pounds, 15% of it might be muscle and water, and 15% actually might be fat, right? Now, that's not necessarily good. You're losing muscle at the same rate that you're losing fat. That can be problematic. And so, yes, the number on the scale looks great and cool. I lost all this weight very fast, but like the quality of weight that you lost isn't necessarily good. I would much rather someone would be metabolically healthier if instead of losing 30 pounds, they lost 15 pounds. And of that, 95% of it, or even 90% of it, was fat loss, right? Because why? We want to keep and preserve as much muscle as humanly possible because that's very important for metabolic health, meaning our metabolism stays high when we have more muscle. Blood glucose. Where do you think carbohydrates and glucose get taken up when we consume them? Into muscle, right? So if we're losing muscle, we're not going to be able to handle carbohydrates as well. So we need to make sure that we're keeping muscle and prioritizing fat loss.
Okay, I have an extra question. Now that you mentioned those different medications, when someone comes to us and they say, okay, I was on that, I want to switch and now do ketones, how can ketones support them if it was someone that was doing those medications and they want to get that muscle back?
100%, and that's one of the benefits of ketones, right? So when we look at ketones, one of the things I'm super excited about is that they actually have muscle preservation effects, meaning as you start to lose weight, and we see this a lot with people who are consuming exogenous ketones, they actually preserve muscle tissue. So you look at important amino acids like leucine or even and leucines and the amino acids are basically the Lego blocks or the building blocks of protein, right? If we can spare that from being broken down, we preserve muscle. And we've actually seen that in our studies. When you diet people down and you consume exogenous ketones, they tend to preserve more muscle. And even in animal studies that we've done, when you've given animals ketones their entire lives, they actually had more muscle mass than those fed the standard American diet without ketones. So we tend to see this muscle sparing effect. So if you are utilizing them, it becomes essential to have something that preserves muscle without causing you to have a ton of calories, which is why ketones are a great source of fuel in order to do that.
Oh, good. Okay, so with fat loss in mind, so if fat loss is their goal, what is a good food window when it comes to like intermittent fasting? Like, what are the hours that someone should be consuming food?
Yeah, the scary F word, fasting, right? I like to use the term eating window because I think that some people are like, yeah, that's less scary, right? But you look at your eating window, and so the way to calculate your eating window currently, if you wanted to look at it, is what time do you start eating and what time do you stop eating? And that's like anything other than ketones, right? So like if you go to Starbucks and get a frappuccino, like that counts. That counts as you starting to eat. If you go to Dunkin' Donuts and grab a sandwich in the morning, that counts as starting to eat. Whatever time you start consuming a significant portion of calories and whatever time you stop eating, that is your current eating window. The best goal for everyone when it starts to come to longevity is at minimum your eating window should be 12 hours. Now, where you really see the best benefit is around 8 hours, meaning if I start eating at 11 a.m., that means I finish eating by 7 p.m., right? 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. would be an 8-hour eating window. The rest of that time, I'm either not consuming food, or I'm only consuming ketones. Ketones can be consumed outside of that eating window. They do not break the fast. So that's really what you should be targeting, is around an 8-hour eating window, maximum really that 12-hour eating window. Anything more than that, we start to see some decrements in like health and longevity. And there are some people that are like that. And that's okay if you're one of those people today, but hopefully you move towards like condensing that eating window, where instead of maybe eating from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., maybe just try and condense that down and cut it out and say, hey, maybe by like, I'm going to stop eating by 7 or 8 p.m. at night to try and condense that eating window.
Perfect. Okay, let's talk about breakfast. So my mom always told me breakfast is the most important meal of the day, but didn't tell me anything outside of that. So when I was in college, I would wake up, make sure I had my Lucky Charms before I headed out the door, because breakfast is so important. There's really a confusion with thinking that you need to wake up and eat breakfast right away. So when is the best time to start eating, and how should we be breaking our fast to really like maximize like what our body has done while it was resting?
Yeah, great question. If you look back at how breakfast got become so relevant and people became so fascinated with eating it first thing in the morning, it actually was a very big push by Kellogg's. It was a very big push, and obviously that led to improved sales for them back in the day, and still to this day, right? One of the biggest cereal brands. But really, when it comes to breakfast, it really comes down to breaking the fast, right? That's what breakfast is. You could have breakfast at 11 a.m., you could have breakfast at 12 p.m. That's what constitutes breakfast. So what is the best time to do that? It really depends on you and your goals, right? If your goals are gaining muscle and you are really on like, you know what, I'm not really focused on fat loss right now. I really want to focus on gaining muscle, and I start working out. I do a workout every morning at 9 a.m. Well, probably after you're done with that workout would be a great time to kind of break that fast and have a good quality meal. Now, if your goal is fat loss, and you're like, hey, I'm gonna maybe do some fasted cardio in the morning, or I'm gonna work out later on, you can extend that. Maybe 10, 11 a.m., maybe 12 p.m. even on some days is a great time to kind of have that first meal. And most importantly, you want to, when you break the fast, the number one thing you want to make sure you have with that is quality protein, right? So your body's just gone through 12, 14, 16 hours of not having proper amino acids and proper nutrients. You want to make sure you break that with a very high quality protein source. Whether that's, you can do that with a protein, you can do that with yogurt, you could do that with a high quality meal, right? So making sure that you're getting at least 4 to 6 ounces of like meat with that meal would be a great start to make sure it's high quality.
Really good. Okay, so with fat loss in mind, when is the best time to be drinking our ketones if we want to lose fat?
Ideally, I would say in the morning, right? So if your goal is fat loss, you want to try and condense that eating window. And you really need to be honest with yourself, and everyone's different. But I'll tell you what happens for most people. Most people enjoy eating traditional dinner more than like traditional breakfast. And what I mean by that is like most people can be like, I can push past 8, 9, 10 a.m. But like I really love sitting down with the family and having dinner at like 5 p.m. But if you're one of the exception that are like, nah, I'm good not having dinner, I want to have breakfast and lunch, great. Then start your day with eating at like 8 or 9 a.m. and maybe wrap up eating by like 2 or 3 p.m., right? Then have ketones kind of after that, a non-caffeinated ketones to help curb your appetite. But if you're like me, like I enjoy having dinner with my family, it's easier for me to quote unquote fast in the morning. So for most people, the best way to consume them is like, hey, I wake up in the morning and I immediately have ketones, right? Like I can't start my day without them. And what that does is that kind of curbs my appetite, gives me clean energy and fuel for the next couple of hours, right? So I don't really even think about food at this point until like 11 a.m. Like that's what time I'm like, oh, okay, I'm starting to like feel a little bit of hunger. And that's been over years that's happened for me where it's like this is just routine. I've gotten in the habit where like it's very easy for me to like go to 11, 11:30, 12, and I use ketones as kind of that bridge to do that. I'll have a meal, and then ideally you're having another one kind of in that in between phase. And what I mean by that is like if you're breaking your fast at like 11:30 or noon, and then you're going to have dinner with your family around 5, right? There's a big gap there, and that big gap can often get people in a little bit of trouble because that becomes snack time, right? Where and those that snack time can get you in a little bit of a pickle when you're having maybe 2 handfuls of nuts and some trail mix, and you know what? Let me just go back to the cabinet. So that's a perfect time when you go. Let me throw in a second one, maybe around 2:30 to kind of break that up and allow me to get to dinner without going too crazy on the snacks.
Perfect. Let's say you wanted a third one before you went to bed. Is there too many ketones that you can consume?
There really isn't. We haven't seen it. We've done safety studies with more than that. But if that is something that you wanted to do, and uh, we do have some new technologies that'll be coming out very shortly that will probably help amplify those benefits, especially earlier on in the day. But if you're someone who like wants to wind down, I know a lot of people use like our free acid formulas, our non-caffeinated free acid formulas at night. Like Dustin Schaefer swears by them, and he's got me on this kick. He was like, one time he's just like, "Hey, why don't you try this before bed?" And I can't stop taking it like that now. It's amazing. So really just depends on the individual.
So good. Okay. Let's say I want to lose 30 pounds. So let's talk like calorie intake, protein, supplements. Like, what would a routine look like so I could lose the 30 pounds in a healthy way and it's not coming back?
It's a really great question, and there's a lot of nuance to this question. My recommendations are going to be very, very, very different than what you will hear traditional people say, right? My goal is always to get you to eat as many calories as possible. Let me rephrase it. As many calories as possible to hit your goals, right? I think most people go the opposite way. Like, I think people go, oh, let's see how little calories you can consume. And then you get yourself in a little bit of a pickle, right? Because when do you stop that? And I find people getting in more trouble that way than kind of with the mindset, at least, that I'm talking about, right? And for everyone, that's very different. And I'll explain, like, I've worked with a lot of people and talked with a lot of people who are trying to like diet and lose a lot of weight. And what happens is they just go, well, I'm just going to cut calories. And I'm like, great. All right, let's do that. Then now they they go, oh, it takes this many calories to lose a pound of fat. Then it's like, great. All right. Then they stall. Then they're like, well, I'm going to cut 500 more calories. At what point are you at a point where you're eating 500 calories a day and your life is miserable and you're like, what the heck? And now your metabolism has slowed down so much that the minute you eat 750 calories or 1,000 calories or 1,200 calories, you start to gain weight. That's a very common cycle in the fitness industry. We want to avoid that. So what we want to do is allow you to eat as much food as possible, as many calories as possible to hit your goal. Now, what does that take? That takes a lot of patience because you're not going to see 30 pounds of weight loss, right? In 2 weeks by doing that. It's going to take a little bit of time in order to make that happen, right? But that weight, you could kiss it goodbye because the goal is to keep that off versus the yo-yo, right? So I could get someone to lose 30 pounds in probably 2 weeks. If you came and lived with me, I can get you to lose 30 pounds, 2 weeks. But guess what? The minute you go back home and the minute you start eating a calorie or 10 calories over what this extreme diet did, you're going to gain it all back. And guess what? That's exactly what they did on The Biggest Loser, right? If you look at that show, they dieted them down, they exercised them, then they gained a lot of it back. So we want to avoid that. So instead, here's what I would recommend. One is always prioritize protein on your plate, right? You have your plate. at least a third of that should be made up of protein every single time you eat a meal, right? That's number one. Number two is after the protein, go to the fruits and vegetables on your plate, right? Then the rice and the starch and all of that stuff. That's an easy kind of thing. That's number one. Number two, you want to condense your eating window to say 8 to 12 hours. That would be a great eating window. 8 hours to 12 hours is great for most people to get started. That's number two. Number three is you want to use, obviously, ketones strategically. Use ketones as an incredible tool, an incredible weapon to help you when you're feeling those cravings, to kind of help you extend the fasting window when you need it the most, right? Utilize ketones strategically. And number four, I'll give you five. So this will be number four. Number four is use other tools to also help curb your appetite. So what are some ways to do that? Drink more water, right? It's a reason, like if you're drinking 2 to 3 Stanleys a day, yeah, you might be in the bathroom a little bit more, peeing a little bit, but you're also going to curb your appetite a lot more. So you're going to be full, but you're also going to be hydrated. You can also start your meal with a low-calorie salad, right? Now, that doesn't mean go get bacon and ranch and load this salad up and start eating a 1,500-calorie salad, but a low-calorie salad before your meal will help you feel fuller, so that way you're not eating all of the baked potato, you're just eating half of it, right? So that's something. And then also another tool that I like to use is if you're consuming a protein shake, blend it. This is like a game changer for me. This is like, I will not consume my shakes any other way, by the way. This is like an absolute game changer. Is you take it, and instead of just throwing it in a shaker bottle and mixing it up, you take that same amount of like, whether it's milk or water and the protein, you put it inside of a blender, you add some ice, and you blend it for 30 seconds. It'll add volume to that shake, and it'll actually increase how full you are just by doing nothing else other than blending it, because you're adding air in to that shake, so it's adding volume, and it actually won't fit inside of your shaker cup anymore. You're actually gonna need like a shaker cup and a half in order to drink it, even though it's the same amount of calories. So that's a great tool. And number five is move, right? We need to move our bodies. Our bodies are designed to move. How we move and how often we move, obviously there's a lot of preference, whether you're doing sports, whether you love going to the gym, whether you hate going to the gym. At some level you need to move. Ideally you're getting in 7,500 steps per day minimum, and if you're tracking it on a Apple Watch or a Whoop or Aura, whatever you're using to track, or even your phone, if you have an iPhone or anything that tracks it for you. And ideally, like 2 to 3 workouts per week. And those can be done from the comfort of your home, or they can be done from the gym. Just something to get your heart rate a little bit more elevated. So hopefully that helps.
That's a really good hack with the protein. I really like that. Okay, so what's an appropriate amount to lose per week? So let's say I'm like 160 pounds and I want to lose 20 pounds. Or maybe there's someone who's 300 pounds who wants to lose 100 pounds. Is it going to look different for them as far as like what's appropriate like per week to lose that's healthy?
100%. That's a great point. The more you have to lose, the more you can afford to lose per week. So, like for example, if someone say is 250 pounds, they can afford to maybe lose a 3-to-1 ratio, meaning for every 4 pounds they lose, 3 of it might be fat, 1 of it might be a little bit of muscle, right? And that's okay for that individual. Versus someone who's a little bit leaner, you can't really afford to lose that much muscle, right? So your path is going to be a lot slower. You might be losing a pound of fat a week, right? And it's often hard to measure that. So I'll give you an example of why that's hard. Unless you're measuring yourself on an InBody or you have some like sophisticated scale at home. Because when I say 1 pound of fat per week, that might mean 0 weight loss on the scale, And you're like, well, that doesn't make sense. What do you mean? That, and I'll repeat that. That might be you actually lost no weight. And in some cases, especially early on, that actually might mean you gained weight. And you're like, what the heck is he talking about, right? Why? Because you just started a new routine. You just started eating more protein. You're like, hey, Ryan told me I need to work out 2 to 3 times a week. I need to walk more. I'm getting into the best shape of my life. I'm gearing up for summer, right? That's what I'm gearing up for. You can look at that and go, well, I want to lose weight on the scale. Not necessarily. You want to lose fat. And what that might mean is I lost a pound of fat, but I also gained a pound and a half of muscle. Well, what would the scale show? That I gained weight. It would show again. You'd be like, it's not working. He's lying to me. There's no way. No, you're having what's called body recomposition. This is a beautiful thing. Absolutely beautiful thing. And over time, those changes will start to become very transparent to you. So ideally, you're doing some type of measurement. I see Susan, great comment, like take measurements. There's other ways that you can do that. Ideally, you have like a scale or some type of in-body device where you can look at like body composition. If not, you could do like tape measurements, or you can, if you're able to do this, like take pictures every week, and do not step on the scale every day. That is going to be like that. If you want to go crazy and drive yourself insane, it's going to fluctuate so much. I can step on the scale. It's almost 9 o'clock here in Tampa. I could step on the scale right now. And tomorrow morning when I wake up, this is how much my weight fluctuates. I will probably be 5 pounds less, right? Does that mean I lost 5 pounds of fat overnight? No, that doesn't mean that. But if I measure myself at the same exact time on Monday morning and the same exact time on Sunday morning, that's going to be my best gauge of like, oh, what happened this week? And for me, like when I say measure, I mean I'm measuring using like a body composition device, not necessarily only a scale, if that makes sense.
Good. So good. Can you explain? I call it the whoosh effect. And so, like, you're doing all the things, like, you still feel a little bit bloated. I'm working out, I'm drinking ketones, I'm like watching what I eat, I'm intermittent fasting. Nothing changes for 3 weeks. This happens to me all the time. And then week 4 hits, and all of a sudden, I get tremendous results. And I'm so happy I didn't give up. Like, what is happening in our body where our body says, okay, you can release?
Yeah, it's really good. If you think about it, our body loves homeostasis, right? It does not like change either way, right? Your body's constantly fighting to be in balance. And all of a sudden, once you start like, hey, I've been this way, I've been in kind of balance, and you're like, nope, I'm going to take the reins. I really want to go down this path. It might be frustration week 1, frustration week 2, but eventually your body's going to go, woo, she's fighting or he's fighting, and they're going, and all of a sudden, boom, you kind of get that whoosh effect where a lot of those changes that you just worked your butt off for 2, 3, 4 weeks start to become a lot more transparent to you, right? Your cellular health starts to change, your mitochondrial function starts to change, and with that comes a lot of the changes that you've been hoping to see in the mirror, on the in-body, or some of the body composition scales and things like that.
Perfect. Do you have time for like 3 or 4 more questions?
Do it.
Okay, cool. So let's kind of dive into like someone who is facing like menopause. Like I've worked with women and they're like, these ketones are doing amazing things for like fat loss, my hot flashes, the cramps in my legs, clearing up my skin. Can you speak on like how ketones can help someone who is experiencing menopause, who now has this weight out of nowhere and wants to get it off?
Yeah, it's brutal. It's very, very tough, and men, we have it easy. So it's a very tough thing to go through, primarily for 2 reasons, right? One is hormonal changes, right? There are hormonal changes that take place, and 2, with that, your insulin sensitivity starts to change, right? So it's kind of like when you are super young. Anyone who's super young, like you're very insulin sensitive, you can eat anything and get away with it. as we get older, that insulin sensitivity starts to change. Well, when you're about to go through menopause, it kind of comes to a screeching halt, and it's like, hey, like you need to be a little bit more conscious. You can that little bit of sugar doesn't really work anymore. So you need to be a little bit more conscious. So how ketones help with that? One is on the hormonal side, right? Helping kind of balance out some of the hormones that tend to go a little bit out of whack during that period of time. And then secondly, to what I was talking about earlier with like kind of that glucose response is even though ideally you're starting to cut back on like your processed and refined carbohydrates, especially around that time. But around that time, if you are consuming carbohydrates, you're getting huge spikes in blood glucose because your body's not handling carbohydrates as well. So if you have a tool like ketones that can kind of help bring that curve down or make that bump not as high, you start to see a lot better results overall.
So good. How about women and their cycle? Should you be fasting before your cycle? Should you keep your intermittent fasting the same? And can you speak on this fueled by female? Because when I'm moody, this one just does something magic for me.
Yeah, we put a lot of female-focused ingredients in there, so it's really, really. I love that formula. We gotta talk
Mhm.
more about that. Maybe we'll make a male version as well, right? I think that would be cool. Kind of have like a female, male. Maybe we have some other boosters. Hint, hint. That'll be coming later. But I think one of the things that we we look at when it comes to how often should you fast, like really it boils down to the goal, right? I do think you need to be especially around you need to be careful about prolonged fasting, meaning like I'm going to go do a 30-hour fast. Like that's probably not ideal. You probably want to make sure that you are fueling appropriately, making sure that you're having enough calories, right? Kind of back to what I was talking about earlier of having enough calories to hit your goals, but no more, no less, right? We don't want to go through extreme periods of starvation. So utilizing ketones strategically to allow you to get in proper fuel, but also making sure you're fueling appropriately. And we have plenty of other support ingredients that allow you to do that as well.
Perfect. And I do want to make a point that you said that men have it easy. So when you are fasting or when you are doing these ketones or you have a weight loss goal and you are doing this with your husband, make sure you know that your journeys are going to look very different from one another. Okay, I have two more questions. How about stress and weight gain? How does stress play a role in gaining fat and how can we help reverse that?
Ooh, great question. These questions are fantastic. It has a huge impact, right? Stress has an enormous impact, and there's short-term stress, which can be great. Actually, it can be very productive. When you work out, that is a short-term stress, right? It's a stressor to your body. Your body doesn't love that. It's like, whoa, what's going on? You're tearing up muscle. That's good stress, though. That's what we call eustress. Then there's prolonged stress, which unfortunately most people live with. Whether you're stressed about your relationships, your finances, your work, your this, your that, your kids, right? I'm constantly worried about my kids, right? Like, but there's ways to cope with that actually change the biochemical response inside of your body. That doesn't mean that you need to live it in, and this is where people kind of get this wrong a lot. We work with, for some of you that don't know, like one of our clients and really good friends is Tony Robbins. So we work very closely with him. And he's one of the best at talking about this topic is that we're all high level performers, right? Everyone who's on this call, you're on this call because you're a high level performer in some form or fashion. Some of you might be athletes. Some of you might be rock star moms. Some of you might be rock star friends and colleagues and workers, right? Whatever you're doing, you're a high level achiever. with that comes the responsibility that you will have stress in your life. It's not going to be a stress-free life. But what you can do is reappraise that stress. And that actually changes the biochemical response that you will get from that stress. So like, for example, if you look at stress as a burden, oh my gosh, I got to do all this stuff. I got to run the kids around. I got to do this. And on top of that, I got to jump on the Zoom at night. And then I got to do this. That stress will compound and start to feel the weight of the world on your shoulders. It'll shoot cortisol up, and then you'll start storing fat. And when cortisol's high, it's not just that you're storing fat. Unfortunately, it's the worst type because it's the stuff around the belly, it's your hips. That, like, a lot of that comes from elevated cortisol. So two things you can do is, one, utilize strategic tools like ketones that actually can help impact these things like cortisol levels, which is really neat, and utilizing them strategically as a tool to kind of help improve mood and kind of keep like the stress levels low when we deal with it. Two is reappraise the stress. So when those stressors come in, reappraise them. You know what? Wow. You know what? I am so grateful that my kids are so active that I get to run around with them and play with them. And you know what? They're not going to be like this forever. So let me soak up the time that I do have with them, because in 5 years I'm going to blink and they're going to be out of the house doing their own thing. Right? That's reappraisal. Or, you know what? I got to jump on the Zoom tonight because my friend told me I need to be there, but I have all these other things to do. You know what? My friend cares about me so much that they invited me to jump on the Zoom tonight. I am so grateful that I have a friend that really cares about me that much to invite me to jump on the Zoom. Right? Like, that's a reappraisal of that will drastically change the amount of cortisol that gets released in your body.
That was such a good answer. Such a good answer. I'm going to use that. I have a 6-year-old. Okay, last question. How do electrolytes play a role in fat loss?
Huge role. They play an enormous role. If you look at all the biochemical reactions that go on in the body, you need sodium, calcium, magnesium, these electrolytes to really power them, right? If those are out of whack, you've probably experienced what that feels like. What that feels like is all the signs of dehydration, headache, lethargy, which just means like you're super tired, right? Do you think you can live an optimal life with those things? Just those two things alone? Like, no, because guess what? When you're tired, when you have headaches, at a cellular level, that's not only problematic, but just overall functionally, when I'm tired and I have a headache, am I going to really want to go walk 7,500 steps? Am I going to want to go to the gym? Am I going to want to go eat high quality foods? No, I'm probably going to want to go snack on something that's probably not going to be conducive to my goals. And I'm probably going to want to sit on the couch and lay down all day, right? But when you balance, like, the number one thing I do when I'm starting to feel like that is immediately I'm like, let me fill up with some water and throw some electrolytes in there. And that is like my trigger of being like, oh, boom. Anyone that asks me, they're like, you know what? I'm starting to like do. I'm like, 99% of the time it's dehydration. Let's get some electrolytes in you. Let's get you hydrated. And within like an hour to 2 hours, they feel like a new person, right? So electrolytes are essential for everyone. And the more active you are, the more electrolytes you need. Meaning, if you are today, like, you know what, I'm kind of sedentary, great. You might need like one Mitoplex today. But like, if you start incorporating a routine, the more you are exercising, and we are heading into the summer, right? So if you live like anywhere close to where I live in Florida, like, I go for a 10-minute walk and I'm like dripping sweat. The more you sweat, the more you need to replenish electrolytes, because as you start to sweat, as you excrete out urine, with that comes loss of electrolytes. It's important to replace that with water and with those electrolytes that you're excreting out.
So good. And I love our electrolytes. I take them like a pixie stick, and so I get them right away. We appreciate you so much. Thank you for staying on for some extra questions. Is there anything you want to add at the end? Anything that you're excited about for like the future of ketones right now? We're all ears.
There's a lot. There's a lot. I'd probably get in trouble for sharing too much, but there is so much. I just think it's funny because when people ask me, I like even still I talk with a lot of people. I travel a lot, and there's a lot of people in the world who still have no idea what ketones are, which is incredible to me. It's just like it's they're such an incredible technology, and I feel like we're just kind of just breaking through the ice of like the mainstream starting to be like, oh, okay, yeah, I've heard of that. I know someone who's like taken them before or something like that, which is great. And so for us, what we're constantly doing is go, great. How do we have our foundation? And something that I'll leave you with a little tease here is like, what if we could have our foundation of like our keto nat, but possibly have like these add-ins that could go inside of KetoNat to amplify the goal, right? So like something for maybe fat loss, like that amplifies the fat loss effects, something that amplifies the cognitive effects, maybe something for female, male, perhaps that might be in the works, but I'll keep you guys there.
I mean, if you want to keep talking, you can keep talking. This is getting exciting. And so,
No, but I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
yeah, we appreciate you so much. You guys need to give Dr. Ryan Lowry a little bit of love in the chat. He stayed on an extra 15 minutes with us. Thank you so much for taking your time with us. We appreciate you educating our community. Those of you that are still on, if you want to type in the comments a topic that you would love for our mini wellness workshops, go ahead and put it in the chat right now. So these mini wellness workshops are every single week. And if there's a topic that you're like, man, I wish that they would do something on XYZ, put it in the comments now. And possibly it could be something that we can do in the future. Also, the ultimate summer reset is coming up. It is going to be absolutely amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, there are prizes. I love prizes. And like, we're going to feel our best this summer. We are going to get a kickstart. And remember, it's not all about fat loss with this ultimate reset that we are doing. It could be a different story. It could be about energy. It could be about sleep. It could be about your mood. It could be whatever your better story is. So it's going to be really, really good. So get back to the person that invited you to this call. Make sure you ask them about the summer reset because we are getting started on June 1st. So thank you so much for your time. Enjoy your evening.